Good morning. Oh, look at
I have
this.
to confess, that's not even one. I
Microphone
remember
is
having.
working nicely. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the Kane County Executive Committee meeting to order. It is Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. It's about 9:02. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Ellen?
Alan, present. Good morning.
Good morning.
Bates here.
Berman?
Herman's here.
Ford?
Board present.
Caius? Kenyon?
Kenyon here.
Lewis?
Lewis here.
Linder?
Linda here.
Molina?
Molina present.
Sanchez?
Sanchez present.
Strathman?
Strathman here.
Surges?
Surge is present.
Tepe?
Jeppy here.
Hirag.
I'm here.
You have a quorum?
Very good. Yes, Mr. Davis, you
I just
volunteered.
want, would you like a brief recess so you can come back with a full-size notebook?
I like how we can do that.
More?
You're gonna make trouble, sir. You thought you have an officer back there.
You better stay home.
Julie made me do it.
I've already been warned that several of our board members may have to leave by 11:15, so we'll get through this. And with that, Mr. Davis, why don't you lead us in the pledge?
Flag of the United States of America. Somebody else go, I went.
All right, started again. 1, 2, 3.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, wow.
I like your enthusiasm.
We're all in order. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
would, this is Caius, I would request that we accept the minutes from April 5th, 2023 without objection.
Very good, thank you. Without objection? Okay, very good.
Approved.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I believe we have one public comment today.
You don't have to say the word unanimous consent.
Mr. George Vander Lind, please. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, Chairwoman, and members of the committee for giving me an opportunity to speak. Good morning. My name is George. I live in North Aurora. I am against recreational marijuana use in my state, county, and village. The Controlled Substance Act of 1970 clearly defines marijuana as a Schedule I narcotic, making the manufacture, distribution, dispensation, and possession illegal. FDA and DEA research shows marijuana has a high potential for abuse. Marijuana will bring graft and corruption to every level of state government. 4 out of the last 7 governors of Illinois have spent time in prison. Greed and corruption of public trust has a long history in Illinois state politics. The recreational marijuana law enacted in Illinois has its roots in Governor Pritzker's initial run for state office. It was conducted by the Paul Simon Policy Institute of SIUC, which in turn was touted by the Illinois Policy Institute to fit then candidate Pritzker's narrative. 1,000 people were polled. Was the formula for mean of sample population applied? Statistics and polls can be very subjective. State Senator Steens and State Representative Cassidy introduced the Illinois Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act. Both have left Illinois politics for greener pastures. Representative Cassidy abruptly left Illinois politics when she got caught double dipping. Representative Cassidy was working 2 political/governmental jobs at the same time. She knowingly defrauded Illinois taxpayers. She then left Illinois for Florida, and with her wife, and her wife got a sweetheart deal in the Florida marijuana industry. Chicago Tribune reports she allegedly stated, "There is no quid pro here." That is magical and mystical. Magical because she literally disappeared in a puff of smoke, and mystical because I am mystified by the level of political chicanery she was able to pull off. Again, in his initial race for governor, Pritzker cited the Illinois Policy Institute that stated 70% of Illinoisans wanted recreational, never marijuana. Never mind about offering a referendum to the citizens. A lobbying firm will decide for you what they think is best. That is tyranny. To paraphrase Paul Simon, Pritzker is practicing fellowship, not leadership. Pritzker cherry picks public sentiment and bends it to suit his agenda. Pritzker is no leader, only a follower. The ultimate goal of recreational marijuana is tax revenue, meanwhile jeopardizing public health, safety, and welfare. The Illinois Department of Revenue receives marijuana taxation monies via electronic payments of cash. There is no oversight, accountability, or federal regulation. It could be argued that Pritzker is running a drug cartel by using the Illinois Department of Revenue as his personal bank. Racketeering and RICO statute violations are in play. Just because a law is made doesn't make it exactly so. The DOJ has been defunded by Congress in 2019 to enforce.
Mr.
federal-
Lind, I hate to interrupt you, but this is off agenda. So could you finish up, please? Because you have 3 minutes.
Yes, I reclaim my time. The DOJ has been defunded by Congress in 2019 to enforce federal marijuana laws. Previously, the Cole Memorandum issued under Obama decreased federal enforcement of these laws. The DOJ has been castrated by Democratic politicians, which has effectively relaxed the enforcement of federal marijuana laws. My heart is sad. The citizens of Illinois who oppose medical marijuana are silenced. I am here to voice opposition to recreational marijuana in Illinois and to save Illinois politicians from going down the immoral path to incarceration. If only those same politicians would quit blowing smoke. But I can only hope that the winds of change will keep that smoke away from my family. Thank you. I'm sure you didn't want to hear that.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Lind, all comments are welcomed.
Decently written and decently written. Okay.
May I have a motion and a second to place Mr. Lind's comments on the written public comments on file? Or just public, thank you.
Board seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Ford.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lindy. Vander Lindy, my apologies.
Who's maybe spell it?
Miss Allen,
Yes.
Bates, Berman, Best,
Davis, yes.
Ford, Gums,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Linder,
Linda, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe.
Tippy, no.
And my apologies, I just opened this. This is another off agenda. My apologies. Is Mr. Lobel online? I do not see him in the audience. All right, let's go on to our next point then. There she is.
Hello. The monthly financial reports are in your agenda packet. Be happy to answer any questions you have regarding those.
Any questions? Any questions online? No. And why, I see no questions. Could you just give us a brief update? How's everything doing at your office?
It's very busy. We're still working on some of the final schedules for closing out fiscal year 22, and we are getting ready to do some work on the budget process for FY 24 opening that up shortly. So more information to come on that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
With that. Ms. Mann.
Good morning. We have helped publicize the recent recycling event, which I'm told had over 700 participants, cars passing through the recycling event over at the circuit clerk's office over the weekend, the property tax deadlines, and then the incident involving a KDOT truck in Carpentersville yesterday. We're in the process of organizing a public information office and communications gathering. I've drafted a letter that will be sent on behalf of myself, Under Sheriff Amy Johnson and Randy and Office of Emergency Management. We all felt this was necessary to do it countywide so that we would have that network available to us. We are registered to participate in the Swedish Days Parade. That's on Sunday, June 25th. We are creating a banner with the help of Savannah here. I'll be asking for volunteers to march in the parade. The banner kind of looks like this. It just touts King County with our logos for our departments. Pretty simple. It's about 8 feet will be. So I thank Savannah for her contribution to that. We are looking at possible reversions to Kane County Connects. We've been editing it now for almost a year, so we thought we'd take a look at it and see if we could update it in any way. We had another successful taping of Coffee with the Chair, where we had the Office of Emergency Management and head of Red Cross talk about disaster preparedness and how that impacts Kane County. And also, we will be welcoming next month our intern from the University of Chicago. Yes, his name is Gabe. He's going to be a junior. He's studying policy, government policy. So we'll see what he can do for us and help other departments as well.
Wonderful. And I think this is the first time we've had an intern of this, and the intern will be paid by the University of Chicago as well. So I think it'll be a generous and wonderful opportunity for us. And much appreciated. Yeah, much appreciated. So we'll introduce him. Good, very good. So do we have any old business? None? Is there any new business? All right. Right, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sanchez here. I will begin with forming our consent agenda for the American Rescue Plan Committee. I have 7 resolutions, and unless there are any objections, I will move all 7 and ask for a second.
I'll second that.
Mr. Kenyon seconds. I'll briefly go through these for you. The first one, it just simply authorizes expenses for auditing services provided by Baker Tilly as part of our annual audit process. The second resolution is approving the invoices for Ernst & Young for work they've completed for us on going after FEMA grant money. The third resolution, it authorizes the microfilm archiving project for the circuit clerk's office. This is one of those department project requests that we got in last year. And the fourth one it's the state and local fiscal recovery funds for development of parameters for grants to eligible USC 501c19 veteran service organizations. So this is a new project that came about, but it was kind of a, we couldn't get the veterans organizations in time for the community support grant program. So now we're able to help those organizations out. The fifth resolution is making our part-time administrative coordinator to a full-time program coordinator position that is currently occupied by Jenny Smith. The sixth resolution is authorizing the expungement clerk project for the circuit clerk's office, another department request. And then the final resolution is a new grant that we have for the Tri-City Health Partnership. And again, that is an organization that kind of couldn't quite qualify with our community support grant program, but it was so close. We wanted to try and include them. And I believe Kim Lemansky from that organization is here today if you have any questions on that resolution. Otherwise, I will take questions on the others if anyone has any.
Does anybody have any questions for Kim? Kim, while you're here, why don't you come on up and just explain very briefly what this grant is going to be used for?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all very much. Again, Kim with Tri-City Health Partnership, for the last 21 years. No, can you hear? I'm so sorry. Okay. For the last 21 years, we have been providing free medical and dental care to low-income uninsured residents of Central Kane County. Last year, we had over 5,000 visits, and just 5 years before, we only had 1,800. So the number is continuing to rise. These are low-income residents who typically do not qualify or have access to health insurance through their employer, and or have no ability to pay for any services that they might need. So we offer both acute and chronic care solutions, medications. For 21 years, we've been right downtown St. Charles, this cute little hidden place that is no longer a nice little short nonprofit. We have grown to a vital member of the community and appreciate the consideration for this funding.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. If there's no other questions, and it's one of the pearls of wonderful not-for-profits that serve our communities. So absolutely, well worth it. With that, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, aye.
Berman,
Yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford, Gums,
Gums, yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Debbie, yes.
They all pass.
Okay. very good. Mr. Ford.
Good morning, everybody. County Development has two ordinance and a resolution. We'll do the ordinance first, was the ordinance for establishing the Boyer Road Special Service Area. Of course, it's in Kane County, and a levy taxes of the purpose of paying the cost of providing special service and for such area.
Could you get closer to the mic,
Oh.
please? Thank you.
Ordinance for Boyer Road Special Service Area of Kane County. This is a tax levy to do provide special service for that area. So I'll make the motion. get
Allen
a second.
seconds.
I don't know if there's any questions or comments.
I talked to Brady about, that was off consent, but then she said it doesn't need to be off consent because it needed to go to development and then exact. Yeah, he's just moving the first one.
You're just moving the first one, not both?
It's just the first one, yes.
All right, very
Because
good.
they're separate. They're pretty separate.
All right, okay. The questions, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe.
Debbie, yes.
That one passes.
All right. The second one is a resolution authorizing salary adjustment for the Director of Environmental and Water Resources.
Strathman will second.
This
there
has come through by HR to do matching salaries.
Any questions on this? Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, we Surges enthusiastically support this.
Thank
So
you. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Long overdue, well earned. Very long overdue. So with that, clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, aye.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe.
Yes.
Very good.
Madam Chair, I want to agree with you that this is way overdue. And to recognize Ms. Wolnick's contributions.
And great achievements,
Mhm.
outstanding
Yes, ma'am.
achievements.
I remember.
All right, Mr. Tepe, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ford. Mr. Tepe. Could you please introduce the executive?
Pardon me, Madam Chair. Executive has 3 resolutions. And I move all 3.
Sanchez seconds.
They are acknowledging the annual review of the number of procurement cards issued to the county board and each of their transaction limits. Second one is authorizing a contract for executive recruitment services and associated fiscal year 2023 budget adjustment. And third is an ordinance amending chapter 26 of the Kane County Code on liquor licenses.
Are there any questions on this? Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, Surges, what is the essence? I'm sorry, I did not read the liquor license one. What is the essence of that?
I think it increases the number.
Raises
We're
the
just
number.
creating,
We're just
raising the
increasing.
number of licenses.
Mhm,
Thank you very
correct.
much.
Correct. Do you want to speak, sir?
Yes, good morning. I'm Mayo St. Don O'Brien. This is.
Microphone, please.
This is an amendment to chapter 26-1 of the county ordinance, which sets the number of allowable liquor licenses within the county, and it also contains a schedule that shows the distribution of those licenses among the various townships. Historically, the county has issued between 33 and 35 licenses. We have been presently had 34 licensed establishments. This year, we had new applicants and other people dropped out. So presently, we have 35 licenses that have been issued. There are 2 applicants, 4 licenses that are still on hold. They need to be passed by the health department and the development department for the physical premises where the licensees would be able to sell alcohol. So what we would ask the executive committee today to do would be pass a resolution which raises it from 34 to 37, and in anticipation that throughout eventually this year, these new licenses would be allowed to be issued.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Surges.
Surges, Nancy O'Brien, do we, and this is just philosophical, do we just wait for people to come in and then we raise these? Or do we keep a couple on the shelf knowing we have them as needed? How does that work? Like if somebody new came in, do they have to
we have
wait for
usually
us to go through a process?
we have usually more allowable than we have licenses. Establishments, new establishments come in. Usually, most of the establishments renew their licenses. Some establishments drop out every year. So we have been fairly static in the number of licenses that we've issued. This year, we had people drop out, and we had 4 new licenses come on board. 2 of them haven't been issued yet. So
will this leave any in reserve on the shelf or no?
So this would, if these 2 are granted, this would bring us up to the 37 that we're asking.
I think Mr. Shepro has a comment.
Yeah. Under the liquor license regulation, local governments have vast authority because of the federal constitutional amendment that repealed prohibition. But
Mr. Shepro, closer to the mic.
sorry.
please.
So generally speaking, local governments do not have more licenses available because even with that regulatory authority, in theory, if there is a unclaimed license, anybody could come in and apply and claim for it. So generally, the county's policy over the years has been, and perhaps I know Mr. Davis at one time was the liquor board and could talk to that. Generally, a license is created when there's an applicant who wants it, and it is eliminated if an applicant goes out of business, so that there are not a pile of unclaimed licenses available.
Like he said.
It just,
It's
you know,
like
like,
a just in time as needed kind of thing. We don't leave a stockpile of them sitting there or allow them to pass from one to another kind of thing. And in terms of making people wait, I'm sorry, yeah, I don't believe we've ever held anybody up. They usually have enough things that they have to do to get ready that having.
that-
our-
and that's my question.
having
If
our
it's
meeting.
Friendly, do
It-
we
it is.
delay them because we don't have an extra one or?
Yes.
Yes.
There's a slight
We do,
delay,
yeah,
but
okay.
typically they have enough things that they're doing to get their insurance ready, their inspections, everything, all put in a row. Yeah, there's a waiting period. And then we have to have a meeting and
There's
kind
an
of prove it, but
extensive investigative process
Fair
for
enough.
licensees.
And Mr. Berman has a comment as well.
Berman here. They also need to get a state license. So they have to get the state license before they can get a license with the county
Okay,
or the community.
thank you.
So it does delay it, but it gives us time to make the investigation and find out whether there's any criminals or any other problems with it.
Thanks, Dale.
Big Rock Township is dry.
It's a valuable,
That's right.
very valuable commodity. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
If there's no other questions, yes.
Madam Chair, Sanchez, you're on the executive recruitment services resolution. Completely in favor of it. I saw Baker Tilly was selected. I didn't realize they perform those kinds of services, so maybe that's just my lack of knowledge of their company. I know they do a lot of other good work for us. Was there a lot of responses to the RFP? Or was it really just Baker Tilly is known as good headhunters?
This is Jamie Labrillo, Human Resources. We received 3 responses to our request for proposals and did sit down and evaluate all 3. And Baker Tilly does have an established line of business doing recruitment services.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. All right. No other questions? Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
yeah, Mr. Yes.
Ford, Gums,
Gums, yes.
Tyus,
Guys, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Surges,
Just yes.
Tepe.
Yes.
Three pass.
Very good. Mr. Berman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The finance has 17 items on our consent agenda. And I'm asking if there's anyone would like to select any of those 17 to speak on separately or vote on separately. I would like to take item 16 and remove it from a consent and vote on it separately. So I'm like to move resolution 1 through 15 and 17 be approved.
Thank you.
All right, item 1 is a resolution approving our March claims paid of $8,604,464.78. Item 2 is a resolution authorizing fiscal year 2023 budget adjustment for consulting services, $5,000. Item 3 is a resolution authorizing contract for co-interim executive director of finance and associate fiscal year 2023 budget adjustment not to exceed 100,000. Item 4 is a resolution ratifying the emergency purchase affidavit for financial and accounting services not to exceed $100,000. Item 5 is a resolution authorizing additional miscellaneous fiscal year 2022 budget adjustments, and there are numerous budget adjustments under Exhibit A. Item 6 is a resolution approving the fiscal year 23 budget adjustment to the Growing for Cane Fund for the implementation of a U.S. Department of Agriculture Urban Agriculture Innovative Production Grant Program of $40,140. Item 7 is a resolution approving a fiscal year 23 budget adjustment to the Growing for Cane Fund for the Denali Foundation Grant and Climate Smart Partnership Program of $50,000. Item 8, a resolution authorizing fiscal year 2023 budget adjustment for hiring one additional veteran service officer for the Veterans Assistance Commission, total of $59,189. And item 9, a resolution ratifying an emergency purchase affidavit to purchase a trash compactor for the Kane County Adult Corrections Facility of $50,000. And item 10 is a resolution ratifying an emergency purchase affidavit to purchase detention door services for the Kane County Correction Facilities of $100,000. And item 11 is a resolution authorizing an agreement with the DocuSign for electronic signature software and services, $86,000. And item 12 is a resolution authorizing capital projects from the capital fund of $5,257,684.23. And item 13 is a resolution authorizing contract extension for security cameras and building area access control systems for $750,000. Item 14 is a resolution authorizing a contract amendment for the Kane County Asbestos Lead, Mold, and Consulting Services of $200,000. And item 15 is a resolution authorizing the AOIC Modernization Grant of $3,286,992. And item 17 is a resolution approving the county board personal expense voucher reimbursement request of $457.45. That is the end of our consent agenda.
Are there any questions on these items? Yes.
Just comment. I think number 8, Veterans Affairs. Jake, we thank you for bringing your distinguished colleagues to the previous committee. I noticed they're not here with you today, but thank you for their participation and getting this done. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for that comment.
Then I'd like to move resolution 16, authorizing agreement for professional government relations consulting.
But you need a roll call
legislating
on.
Lodges.
Do the rest first.
We have to vote. We
Roll
have to
call.
vote first. We have to,
And you
let's
ahead
call
of
the vote.
yourself, Dale.
give us a second.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Bates,
Bates, aye.
Berman,
Yes.
Davis,
That was yes.
Ford, Gums,
Gums, yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Sturgis,
Sturgis, yes.
Pepe.
Zuppy, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Madam-
Kenyon.
Madam Chairman, this is Allen.
Yes, Miss Allen.
Forgive me, but was there a second on Mr. Berman's first 16 motions?
Yes, Mr.
If,
Ford.
if
That was
not, I
Mr.
will.
Ford. Oh, thank you, but Mr. Ford did that.
Okay, that's fine. I just didn't hear. Sorry.
Oh, good.
Now I move resolution 16, authorizing agreement for professional government relations consulting and legislative lobbying services.
Gums will second.
All right. Thank you. Before we begin the discussion, I ask if there's any questions. I have a few comments to make, so I hope this committee will allow me the privilege to do so. There was an article that appeared on Monday, May 1st regarding the lobbyist that appeared in the Daily Herald, and it claimed that I was in favor of this. I want it publicly known that I am not in favor of hiring McGuire Woods. And I have several reasons why that I'd like to share with you. And I'll try to be brief, but I did write it down last night, so I would have my points organized. I have nothing against McGuire Woods. I want that to be clear. It is a well-respected, noted law firm. It's a nationally recognized law firm, offices throughout the United States. It also has a consulting adjunct business part of it that is interested in working for Kane County. My opposition has to do with the cost of $120,000 a year Potentially, if we fulfill the 2-year contract, it comes up to almost $250,000. If we extend the contract, it's almost $500,000. That to me is an extreme amount of money for this county to pay for a lobbying firm. I also question McGuire Wood's ability and past experience to work with local Kane County. In the packet that was presented, I'm holding it in front of me. The only reference that I see to a municipality here in Illinois in this packet is in Normal, Illinois. The other applicant has worked successfully in Aurora for a number of years, has worked in Elgin, is well respected throughout Kane County, including Metro West, and has been very successful in its lobbying efforts here for Kane County. I also questioned the resolution. I realized it was passed through Finance Committee last week. Unfortunately, I was not here. I was doing a presentation in Burlington, but the amount of the money included in this presentation, in this resolution, is incorrect. It says that it's for $60,000. But if we contract in June, that is 6 months, we only can contract for this budget year, which would be $30,000. Or I'm sorry, not 120. It should be 60,000. My apologies. So the adjustment on this, if this is go pass at this meeting, should be addressed and adjusted. I would appreciate the fact that Sheriff Hayne seems to have a great interest in this, wrote the resolution and contributed $50,000. I don't know if he has been asked what his intention is with this and how this is going to be managed. The resolution also does not include who will be paying for these invoices. It states that I would be approving the invoices along with the county board, as well as the legislative committee. But how am I to judge what is to be done on these if it's going to be dispersed through the sheriff, through the state's attorney, as well as our coroner? The other countywide elected officials asked specifically in a meeting that was attended by Chair Gums and Chair Linder that they would like this to be paid out of the general fund so that there wouldn't be any discrepancy of who thought that they would be getting the services. Instead, this was gone out once again to ask in the model that was asked for me not to move forward with by a previous executive committee, that it would be equally shared amongst all rather than taking money from each individual countywide who has independent authority over their budget. I question why the other applicant was not given the fair opportunity to be represented by the search committee, which included Mr. Linder, Ms. Gums, and myself. This individual, this company, was, I believe, was misrepresented, saying it had only one full-time employee, that did not have a good representation available to itself in federal government, which is untrue. We find this independent, small business, small consulting company has been active in Springfield for over 30 years. The gentleman who started this has a great experience not only with national politics by electing a president to a Congress, serving on the Senate, also was the chair of the Illinois Environmental from the state of Illinois Protection Agency. So his interest in environment, which is something that's very apparent here for Kane County, has been honed by real experience, real work. He is found to be effective, responsive, committed, and within budget. Has earned $17.5 million for Kane County to pay down its debt on a bridge that was going to go out to toll. The money that you just approved for my travel expenses down to Springfield was advocating for an additional $12.5 million that is currently in this year's budget, state budget. This is a man who I've been told, well, he did what he was supposed to do. Well, yes, he did. And he did it within budget and with approval of the board. Yesterday, when I got home from work, I walked my dog, as most dog owners do when they get home from work. And a neighbor stopped me, Patty. And Patty and I were talking, and she said, Corinne, I read that article in the Daily Herald. Do you really want to spend that much money on a lobbyist? And I said, no, I don't. I don't. And then I continued walking my dog, and I reflected on the time that Miss Gumbs, who I hold in very high esteem, as I do Mr. Linder. But I remember Miss Gumbs in a presentation that was presented in February, attorney, calling about the lack of salaries, the lack of equity and disparity with their compensation, started to cry and went over to hug them. Kane County has finite resources. I am not willing to spend $500,000 on a lobbyist. I would rather spend $500,000 on our employees. And then last night, I'll give you one more thought. I was checking my email, and I received an email from one of our labor leaders. Mark Polis is his name. You may know Mark. He's been very active in Local 150, the operating engineers, who have been working very, very hard on building that incredible bridge in Long Meadow Parkway, an incredible bridge. He represents the men and women who have built that for us. And he wants to know why we're turning our back on his efforts that helped us get that $17.5 million, helping us to get that $12.5 million. Because he is representing the people who are working on that bridge right now, right today. And we're telling them that their advocacy, the man that they chose, that they helped out to make those connections, that he's not good enough, his firm is not good enough for Kane County. I cannot support this. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you.
Madam Chair Linder.
It's Mr. Linder.
Madam Chair, all due respect, you smeared the search committee and the legislative committee when you said that we didn't give both equal opportunity. Both presented written proposals. Both were here for personal interviews. And then we went through the process, the procurement process to score, and the scores came out favoring the Woods firm. It's true that it's a lot more money. It's also true that we believe that it's time that we actually had a legislative program in Kane County instead of hitting this. We have a legislative committee that has no budget, has no staff, has no legislative platform, and we need help. And there is no attempt to smear Mr. Showman. The things that have been said that are true, that he is basically a small firm. He has no physical presence in Washington. Yes, Mr. Showman has a member on staff who also was on staff of another consulting firm, also owns another consulting firm, who has Washington experience and Washington contacts. We don't deny that. McGowan Wood has people in Washington. We need to put together a legislative platform. We need to put together some priorities. We have things going left and right. You've complained, I've got your boards up here in the back, that the general budget gets only a small piece of the total county tax bill. The rest of it goes out to the electeds. And in this case, because it wasn't budgeted for this amount, the electeds stepped up and said they would help us with the rest of the money. I believe also that this should be a general fund expense, but we probably ought to budget it that way next year. And there's no question in my mind that we would represent each and every department, even those electeds who don't have the budget money to contribute, that anybody who has a legislative need, they would be able to work with this lobbyist to the extent that the lobbyist is so directed by the committee and the chair. I just think this is something we need to do. And I was astonished when I came on the board to find out we didn't have a regular lobbying program. I was on the St. Charles Park Board back in the 1970s, and we had a lobbyist on contract at that point in time. That a county of this size with a quadrazillion-dollar budget does not have a lobbyist, is not working to find those other grant opportunities, those possibilities for, oh gosh, here's some money for something that's shovel ready. We aren't prepared to do that. And we need to come into the 21st century here and get with what everybody else is doing.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Mr. Berman.
Yes, Berman here. I'm against the resolution for a number of reasons. Obviously, we didn't budget, but I think 58,000 for 2023 for this expenditure. And yet we're talking about an expenditure of $120,000 a year for a 2-year period with a potential for a 2-year expansion on that. That's fine. We don't have that money to pledge to this. And it's interesting that our committee can seek out from our elected officials funds to cover what we as a board should be appropriating for these budgets. Now, what I propose for the 2024 budget is that for each one of these elected officials that pledge funds for this, that their budget for 2024 should be at most their last year budget minus the amount of money they feel they can spend on something that the county board should be budgeting. That's my reasons for being against it.
Madam Chair Gums.
I see Mr. Surges, please.
One statement, one question. Question first. My understanding of the fellow that helped with, and I don't know either of these firms, I wasn't part of the committee, but the fellow who helped with the Long Meadow Parkway, was he not 45,000 last year-ish?
No, it was not. There were contracts, each department was $7,500 from us, from the board, $7,500 from the state's attorney, as well as from the sheriff, and $5,000.
So 30-ish.
Mhm.
Okay. And then this year, did transportation not pick up?
$35,000, correct.
So he's in at 65.
And the state's attorney has recently hired him as well.
Okay, so we do have precedence.
And I don't know what that compensation is.
Okay,
for him.
yeah, but so we do have precedence with this individual for an amount above 50 grand, but not quite at 120 grand. And thank you for clearing that up. Second thing, I supported this last week, moving it forward, but my comment was based on Mr. Linder's proposition that this committee neither has staff nor budget And my comment at that time was, before voting on this in the affirmative, I would need to understand who this person actually reports to, responds to, how that worked. Does it report to the county chair? Does it report to the committee chairs? It's just an anomalous committee compared to anything else. I know that we have Assured Partners, that's one of our consultants at $10,000 a month that comes in and reports on our health insurance, but he reports to the department head who reports to committee. This is kind of the Wild West, kind of a new gig. And without that structure, I don't know that I can vote on this right now. It's not baked in there. And I'm not understanding when it says someone approves invoices, meaning they were already given direction and here's the bill for it. Because my question is, who's giving direction and who did they report to, not who's in authority to pay the bill? And I don't have an answer for that yet. So I just wanted to throw that.
And that was, if I may, that was discussed when we first hired Dan Showman, and we had some lengthy discussions before some people were elected, the previous board. And we all agreed who's going to get the 2 o'clock in the morning phone call if the legislature is in session, and it would be the chair. Someone has to make the decision because a committee has to come together as a committee to make that recommendation. So it would always be the chair, unless it was a specific issue, as it was successfully for the state's attorney with the Safety Act that Mr. Showman worked with.
You know, I get stuck conversationally. When we say the chair, the county chair
County
versus
chair.
a committee chair.
That's
'Cause when you
correct.
say chair, I get confused.
I'm
again,
sorry.
You know, so.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, absolutely.
Madam Chair Gums.
Yes, Ms. Gums.
Mr. Sturgis, to your point, this is, we're gonna handle it the same way we handled, we're gonna handle it the same way we handled the previous. As far as them reporting to, I mean, obviously it's a bigger pot now, so they'll be reporting to legislative committee. It's,
Who are they taking direction from?
so they'll be taking direction from our county divisions. The structure will be, if there's a state's attorney issue or a county issue, they'll come to Madam Chair or the legislative committee and say, what is your agenda? And then we'll say, here we go, because we don't have that agenda, to be clear. And then they will report everything back to the legislative committee, whether it's the state's attorney, KDOT, anywhere. They'll come back to the legislative committee. It's written in that resolution. As far as the invoicing goes, I am of the impression that it's pretty standard practice that the invoices go to the chair. I know that was a question.
Again, I'm not concerned about the invoices because the horses have left the barn at that point. I'm interested in.
Well, this is
course,
a
are you-
flat rate, so it's base,
Yeah.
you know, it's a basic housekeeping issue.
Right. I'm interested in not the housekeeping issue, but the direction. And I don't see that baked in here. I don't, what you just proposed, I don't see that in here. I don't see where the committee structure has put that in play yet. And that's all I'm asking for.
So yes, we have in the resolution, we have that it reports to the legislative committee, the executive committee, and the county board.
Is the reports, and again, I don't mean to make dialogue one, commissioner, board member to board member. But is the reports meaning he takes, or the firm takes direction from? Because I see us setting ourselves again to say, we have a antagonistic or supportive relationship between a possible chairman versus a committee, and we shouldn't have that. It should be very clear who the person's taking direction from. And I don't believe it spells that out here. And we're not talking about $5,000 or $10,000. We're talking about real money. So all I'm asking for is, could we just clean that up? And I mean, it sounds like we're in conflict as to who the firm is, but more importantly, if you chose the firm, you know, who's the sheriff on this? You know, who's the, and I didn't mean that like our sheriff, you know what sorry, bad.
We get it.
You got it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
I also see Melina had her hand up
Oh,
online.
Ms.
I
Molina.
defer to her
Thank
first.
you. Yes, Melina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. as anybody who's been paying attention to this is aware, when it came in front of the legislative committee earlier this month, I was opposed to it for a lot of the reasons that have been stated already. It worries me that we don't have a legislative agenda to give a lobbyist to run with. It worries me that we're paying someone $10,000 to create our legislative agenda, it looks like, but we don't have anybody who's really going to give them direction. We're going to ask this lobbyist to go to every one of our department heads and ask them, what's your problem? What do you need help with, for $10,000 a month? And if that doesn't happen, we are still paying $10,000 a month. My second problem or question is, it sounds like we already have a lobbyist with Mr. Schulman. We've provided our chair direction to allow him to continue with the Long Meadow Parkway. So we have a lobbyist already in place. And if this passes, it sounds like we're going to have 2 lobbyists for King County. And I believe we're way over budget. And it sounds like our state's attorney already hired a lobbyist. So we do have presence. It's not as if we don't have anybody lobbying for King County. And we have 24 elected county board members who are also here and present and should be lobbying efforts on behalf of our county. So I'll leave it at that, but I've had a lot of issues with this resolution. I think it's been sloppy to begin with. I think we should have taken a little bit more time to prepare it and kind of dotted our I's and crossed our T's before it got to our committee. And my fear is that this is going to be a continued precedent, and we're going to continue to see resolutions come in front of the executive committee that are not ready to be voted on if we continue with this practice. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you, Mr. Sanchez, and then Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regardless of who we may select for this, I think that issue of governance, who do they report to, who gives them orders is an important one. We have a precedent set in how we did it last year. I don't know if this year we're thinking something differently. My understanding is that they would help us create our legislative agenda by working with all elected officials and departments and the county board, obviously. And then with that agenda in hand, they would go forth to Springfield to represent us. And I think they would also be bringing things to us that we may not be aware of. On my short time on the legislative committee as co-chair, we attempted to put together a legislative agenda and we were somewhat successful, but it was not an easy process. I think not having a staff member is really prohibitive in that regard, whether we had a staff member who was specifically for legislative purposes or a countywide administrator who would be overseeing that process for us. It was very difficult. So I definitely see a lot of value in all of the opinions expressed here today, really. Cost is a factor, but I do believe we need someone to help us develop that legislative agenda because really we are part-time, elected officials. That is something that should be done at the staff level. And without an actual staff member, I would say a consultant such as McGuire Woods or anyone else would be sufficient.
Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to make a few comments on this. Number one, I agree with your position and with Dale Berman and Vern Tepe's position and myself. We all voted against moving this forward from finance. And the reasons were pretty much all stated by everyone. The legislative committee doesn't have the staff or structure or even the agenda to handle this. I don't think at this point, not to say that they can't in the future, but until we get that in place, I can't see moving this forward. I think the cost is too high. I think when we're looking at employees' needs and equitable pay, I'd have a very tough time telling an elected official or department head, well, we can't add that person for you because we're spending it on a lobbyist who may or may not get us some monies. The other thing is our budget for 24 that we're going to be working on, and we are working on now, is going to be a very tight budget. And I think it's very irresponsible on our part to allocate somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000 to a program that isn't really set up and ready to go. And finally, if somewhere in the future, the board as a whole would vote to increase taxes, whether they be property taxes or sales taxes, I think this expense that we are looking at incurring would be very hard for the common taxpayer in King County to absorb. So even though I'm not on the executive committee, I am against it. I voted against it in the finance committee. And if it does go to the full board, I'll be voting against it at that time too. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. Mr. Davis?
A lot of valid points. And I guess I'm struck by, when we talk lobbyist, it invokes a lot of emotion from everybody. It's an area that I think makes everybody squirm just a little bit.
No, it doesn't. Speak for yourself.
Ryan Davis, fear of missing out. How do you measure the absence of something? How do you know if you missed something because you never knew about it? Isn't that part of what we're talking about here?
Mhm.
We don't know everything that's available. Your questions about who takes the lead or on this. In some part, I think the outfit that you're hiring, and I think this might be why the folks that worked on it liked the size of one organization over the other, because part of their task should be to look for things that we may not otherwise know about and wouldn't think to ask about for that same reason. If they do their job well, the return on the investment can be tenfold to the 120,000 that you're talking about putting into it. If in a year or 2 years they don't deliver, there's other outfits out there that you can turn to and try them. So you have to ask yourself a little more about what will you miss out on if you don't, go down this path a little ways and invest in doing better than we have done. And I think the size of the group, as Mr. Linder had talked about, and their presence on a broader scale is meant to help achieve that. That's my 2 cents of the 120,000.
And I would agree with you on.
Excuse
return on
me for
investments.
interrupting you.
I would agree with you on return on investments, and the return on the investment with Dan Showman Inc. has been 1,000-fold. $30 million. That was no small task. Ms. Bates, did you have a?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
With respect to the cost, I read the RFPs from both of the firms, and McGuire is giving us a flat rate of $10,000 a month. Dan Showman's firm is giving us a lower rate, but with it's a blank check because they're going to add travel and other meeting expenses.
It's incorrect.
I've had the floor, Madam Chair, please.
But that is
So that's what was in the RFP was that so it's flat rate versus blank check, which is really hard to compare, right? We don't know for sure. And as far as the cost of $120,000 a year, with all due respect to Ms. Mann, I was pretty shocked when we hired a public information officer for about that amount, as I recall. And you're doing a fantastic job. And, we got to compare apples and apples here. We're paying someone who's helping the county with a little bit like a lobbyist, helping us with our public image, 120, 25, you don't have to answer that question, but I was shocked. And that's because I'm behind the times on what we have to pay professional people for professional work. So as far as this $120,000, I think it's within a reasonable amount of money for a professional firm. And thank you, Mr. Davis, for the fear of missing out. It's true. And we want the biggest muscle that we can have for our lobbyists. I have another point here. Our legislators are begging us for a lobbyist right now. I have this issue in my district, which is we have promised a sound barrier wall along Orchard Road to one of our subdivisions. It was in the agreement. And I keep getting this runaround from the that's a bad word, but I keep getting explanations that I can't understand from the legislators. Why don't I have the money? Why do I keep promising my constituents a sound barrier wall? And I'm going to be up for re-election in a year and no sound barrier wall. Our legislators are begging me to get a lobbyist who can help them understand this issue better and be on top of it. We need legislators now. We should have had one 6 months ago. Well, when we've had this gap, and our legislators are begging us to hurry up and get a lobbyist to help them. So as far as not having a staff person, how long will that take? Does that mean putting it in the 24 budget? Is that a year out? Except for Ms. Mann, it's been really difficult. It's taken us, and how long did it take us to hire, a public information officer? Months, years. I believe we have this infrastructure could work, that the lobbyists would be reporting to the legislative committee. There would be, in some ways, like Mr. Sanchez said, acting as our staff person, a little bit stepping in there until we can do that. And I believe that the committee, the legislative committee, I'm a member of the legislative committee. I think Mr. Linder, Ms. Gums did incredible due diligence in making this decision. The scorecards were filled out. The score, it's past the ninth inning on this. So please vote for this. I think it's important.
And if I may, I'd like to have one clarification, Mr. Folk, before I recognize Mr. Ford. It was mentioned smear campaign, and I think that's a pretty interesting word. There's no smearing. I'm speaking my honesty. But the honesty that I am speaking is the misinterpretation and the clarification that has been presented, and I have shared with board members of this piecemealing. Originally, it was said, and it was written that by Dan Shulman Inc. in his proposal, that any additional expenses beyond the $68,500, which is in his proposal, would have to be approved by myself. So it would have to be pre-approved before any expenses were issued. So if it were to be travel, et cetera. I was told, and came through, and I believe Ms. Bates, you and I had this conversation previously. You said, well, if he's flying to Washington, D.C., we'll have to pay for it. And I said, and then you asked me, well, Chair, if you fly to D.C., will we have to pay for your flight? And I said, if I'm going on county business and it's pre-approved by this board, of course, it would be very natural. So I went back and I asked Dan Shulman. And in writing, which I have again shared, he says, no, it is a flat rate, that there are no additional expenses. And I have shared that with many of the committee members. I think I have shared that with you too, ma'am, that it is a flat rate. So we're not taking a look at having the additional expenses for a cup of coffee, a meal. It is the exact same rate. So we're talking apple to apple, $68,500 versus $120,000, both flat rate. There's also was questions that were asked about putting together the legislative agenda. I asked him, he said, I can do that for you. Do you want a proposal and see what I've done for other municipalities, other organizations? I said, I deferred on that because I didn't want to take advantage of him at that point. So I think it's really important that we speak to truth and not misinterpret the truth.
Madam Chair Gums.
No, Mr. Ford.
No, not. Thank you, Madam Chair. One is a little bit too much bashing going on this, that I'm kind of disappointed in. The other, this is Ford, of course. The other thing, I've been on this board for a while now. And the one thing that's always coming up, that has come up in the past, is how much our elected officials are working individually and how much that hurts the county. So this is one time that I understand there may be some things that may not be totally worked out in a slight detail, but I'll get to that in a second. But this is one time we have elected officials who are trying to work together to get to one common ground. It's hard for me to understand, and I respect everybody's sides on this, is that with one lobbyist, everything is figured out, and then somebody different is here, and all of a sudden there's discrepancy on how it can flow through. I do believe, and I think Davis pointed out, that this is not just lobbyists, they're also consultants, that they can take a leadership role is what we need. I am very much interested in the unknown. We talk about our economic development initiative, which there's a lot of unknowns we need help with. Along with that, our technology, there's so much happening out there and that is needed in King County with technology and the infrastructure that we need a lot of help on. I apologize as a part-time board member that I'm not running to Springfield and DC every chance I get. I apologize for that. I didn't know it really took that. But I do talk to our legislative every chance I get. Also, there's other plans that we've been talking about, how we need to bring more finance into the county. And this is what we're looking at trying to accomplish. I think the perspective is so big. Then we have all of our assistance programs that we have that constantly need funding, even the ones in-house and the one that's throughout the county. All of this can be, there's a large package here that we need to go after. And that's my interest in this. I am not a person who's been totally big on lobbyists. I have to admit that, but I am willing to give this a try. When I hear about all these departments wanting to work together, and my understanding is that this is not money that's been shifted around for this. They've had the money for lobbyists in their budget. They're just all putting it in one pile. I don't see where that's an issue with the money. So the money was budgeted for this, is my understanding. So I'm interested in this for the reason why that we have these people who want to work together. In the past, it has not been the same. And any other time something comes up, we trust our state's attorney's office on doing their part to make sure we're clear on things. I'm doing the same thing this time also. Thank you.
Mr. Tepe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, I think we've seen the value of having a lobbyist. I mean, it's been amazing the kinds of things that have been able to be accomplished with the assistance of a lobbyist. So I'm certainly in favor of that. Okay. And in regard to Mr. Linder's comments earlier, you know, the legislative committee definitely needs, of course, to be the organization taking the lead on this, but they have no staff and no way to do it. And if we're talking about, you know, coordinating not only everything associated with what the county board manages, but also all of the other independent elected officials, many of which will be contributing to this, we need to have a methodology for them to be able to make sure that their needs are being met. And that can not be done by board members, in my opinion. That has to be done by staff. And that plan is not in effect. So those have been my major concerns. And I know that Mr. Leonard agrees with me in that particular area. It hurts me to agree with him, and I'm sure it hurts him to agree with me. But we jokingly talk in those particular areas. And the last thing I want to say is that the article on Monday that was in the paper, usually I'll get one or two comments from people about it. This time I've gotten already 5 different comments from people directly to me saying, Vern, we think that slowing this up is the best thing to do. And I really believe that we need a plan, and I'd love to help be part of that plan, but we need to be in agreement. And it certainly looks to me that we're not in agreement. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Lewis, did you have your hand up? Anita?
No, Ms. Gums did.
Ms. Gums, Ms. Gums, before I recognize you again, I want to make sure that everybody else has had a chance to speak.
Madam Chairman, this is Alan.
Miss Allen, please.
I have long been very suspicious about lobbyists because we had experience in the past that was not, I'm going to say not successful, but you have made your work with our current lobbyist very successful, which kind of gives me hope. We have been struggling with this aspect of the county government and putting our face out there for such a long time that I would like to say this is kind of chicken and the egg. What do you do first? Do you get a staff member on hand to help you put together a program? Or in this case, we're suggesting that our lobbyist will act as part staff to help us come up with a plan of what we need, how we'll put it in place at the same time that they are acting on behalf of us with the state and the feds. I would like to give this a chance because we haven't made it work in the past. And I'd like to see if we could make it work now with this very experienced firm offering to guide us and help us build a program. And I just point out what others have said, that if this is not successful, then we will look elsewhere. But I'd like to see us give it a try. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Positive that if you wait till the last, then everybody said all the good stuff already. Thank you, Miss Allen. I agree with Miss Allen. I think my words were going to be the chicken and the egg, which comes first. We have not had this. We haven't had a good presence in the state legislature. It's proven that it does work. We need a lobbyist. We need to go forward into the 21st century with a lobbyist. Right now, which lobbyist are we going to pick? Well, we've relied on our subcommittee to vet this through. I'm a little disappointed that we come out to this point and still have the subcommittee not getting behind the majority vote on this. But I agree that our subcommittee has vetted it. It's come out, the majority is this way. And I think that if we don't take this opportunity, we've gotten this far. This is a big step for us here. I think that we take this step and go forward with it. It's not too much to spend, as Ms. Bates said. And I agree that we should do this. And again, agree with Ms. Allen again, in 2 years, if it doesn't work, then we will have some response from this. It will get us farther into it, and we'll have a consultant that will help us. We won't need staff to rely on staff, and they're already stretched full. This is a service that we're hiring to get this stuff done.
So both, for clarity again, before the vote, and I'm going to recognize you, and just clarity, both firms that have represented are offering to help out, put together the legislative agenda. So both firms are equal to that. So it's not one or the other. Both are willing and able and wanting to help, and both have offered that. So yes.
So if you're rebutting my rebuttal.
Oh, no, I'm not rebutting.
Kind of, because this is where the committee has gotten us, is to this selection now. So we're deciding on whether it's this one, not whether it's between the two of them. This is the one we have a choice on now. My point is that even if they both do it, this is the one that the committee has selected. I think that we should go with it.
If Bill and Vern can agree, You and I.
Well,
can
you
do
know,
this.
oh, I did want to mention that. If
You
Bill
and I
and
can agree
Vern,
too.
you don't know how much it pains me to know that you two agree on anything. So you're not the only ones.
And Mark and I are agreeing, so.
My gosh.
Okay, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I want to refer to our Assistant State's Attorney for a question. There is a written amendment for the resolution that's been passed out by email and also individually. This is the amendment that has been, this will be the final thing we're going to vote on today. So do I need to make a motion to amend the amendment in the agenda to adopt the written amendment?
The written amendment, sorry. Shepros, the written amendment is a amendment to the resolution that was on the agenda. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
You would have to move the amendment in order to have it.
All right,
voted on.
before I complete my statements, then I would move to amend and accept the written resolution that you have in front of you.
Dice would second.
Call the question.
No, we can't call the question yet. We can call the question on the amendment. So we'll be voting with Mr. Bourbon's approval,
Well,
of course.
you can move, Shepro again. You can move the question on the amendment, but it is debatable.
That,
And
Yep.
and it would require a 2/3 vote to cut off debate on the amendment if people desire to speak to it.
request that we do some information here.
The one thing that we have to have clarified, I'm sorry to interrupt, it's just if you approve this, you're approving $120,000. Remember, the person, whatever firm, if you choose to move forward with the proposed firm, do not believe that you want $120,000 paid in this year's budget.
Point of order, Madam
Budget
President.
goes from June to November.
Point of order, because we're talking about the resolution at hand, if I'm correct, is not choosing one vendor over the other.
No, point of order in addition, the current motion is to substitute this resolution for the one that was in the packet. That is not voting on the resolution, it's voting to substitute this in the consideration.
Then could.
And
point-
that.
Ooh, I already.
I think it
It's
was.
already
I
been
did
seconded.
already,
That
and
would
then
be
I would ask for
discussion.
discussion and an explanation
Discussion?
if possible.
So,
Why we're substituting it.
Madam Chair, Gotts, if I may. So, in the resolution that you had and received last night and that you have in front of you today, what has changed is, was it budgeted? Yes, and then it includes the whereas to include the breakdown. And then the accounts from which it comes from. That's the change that was made. As opposed to the agenda reading to be determined. So this was updated.
May I ask a question for clarification? The only budget that I was aware of, and I'm not nitpicking, just clarification. The only budget that I was aware of was the $45,000 that's in the county board budget for consulting. So this was sort of budgeted, but not all budgeted.
The budgets for the state's attorney, sheriff and coroner are included in the resolution.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
So it's just a little housekeeping on that. So before we go
Here,
forward
hold
with
on,
my.
Hold on just a second. Here we go.
Sorry, I have a question. I haven't seen the revised. Is there a budget adjustment included in the revision?
No.
If this passes through, I would just ask that I can work with whoever did this, so we
Each one
can
of
get a
those-
budget adjustment and perhaps transfer the money to a countywide
Yes.
budget all,
Right.
so it can be processed accordingly.
That would work, yes.
There'd be some more paperwork by the sheriff, the coroner and the state's attorney, because the monies have to move from an
Correct,
account
just
that
some
they have.
housekeeping stuff.
Yes. Which is not in there so far.
Madam Chair, so point of order, so now we're just voting on this replacement ordinance, which
Correct.
is.
That's
passed. All right.
correct. Are there any other questions on this?
So this is not calling the question. This is
No,
calling the question on the
amended version.
change.
The change.
So
Just the amendments, yeah.
Molina, just a brief question.
Yes, Melina.
Regarding the amounts given from the sheriff, state's attorney and coroner, is that for the 2-year contract period or is that for fiscal year 2023?
It is agreed upon for the RFQ for the whole thing.
No, well, then
So
that's
right
not
now,
enough
we're
money.
still just voting on this
No, we're-
amendment.
wait a minute. I'm very confused. You said it's stated for the RFQ for the whole thing. Is that for 2 years? Because then it's not enough money. And we
No,
cannot.
this is for the 1 year,
uh,
10,000 per month.
My question is regarding where the money is coming from. It states the sheriff is providing 50,000. Is that for fiscal year 23 or is that for the 2-year contract that this resolution states?
Fiscal year 23,
Okay, so same with the state's attorney and the coroner.
correct.
And then next year, we're going to worry about finding the 120,000 for next year's budget.
Correct.
Okay.
A question,
Yes, Mr.
I
Mr.
just,
Shepro.
Shepro, just to make sure I understand this. I'm looking, I think, at the amendment, the fourth whereas it says that whereas the term of the agreement is for 2 years at 10,000 per month. And then the next one says the funding is as follows. So I guess is the amendment intended to say that that funding is only for the first of the 2 years?
I think it's for a year. I believe, is our state's
I
attorney?
think that
on?
was perhaps Ms. Molina's question.
Yes,
Oh, who's got their hand up?
Is it for each year?
I mean, that,
Be implied, I think, each year they would apply this amount of money.
So,
so I guess the question is, will everybody be funding this for the next year? That's the question, Ms. Molina, correct?
I
Well,
mean, just doing.
The resolution
math,
states for 2 years. So if it is for just 1 year, I just want it to be stated so that as the board, we're aware that we're going to be on the hook for the full 120,000 from the general fund for next year.
and,
The,
yes, Mr. Shepherd, then I have a question to you,
the,
please.
well, I'm tempted to say that I didn't think there would be any math on this exam, but the whereas funding, if you add that up, it's $120,000.
120,000.
So that would seem that it must be therefore only for 1 year. Unless it is intended that it be 120 per year, but it doesn't say that in the amendment.
Madam Chair,
May I, and Mr. Shepherd, can we commit to a 2-year contract pending budget? Since we don't have the approval of next year's budget and what that's going to be looking like.
Have we not?
I'm just questioning it for any contract.
I think
be-
we've approved several contracts for multiple years.
Yeah. Well, somewhat to some extent, it's like the legislature. I mean, you can approve it as subject to having the money when
Yes,
you
yes.
get to the next.
Correct. So if we write, because we don't have a contract to go with this, we have a proposal. We've got a proposal. Traditionally, when we've gone in the past, not only do we have this refined budget, but we also have submission of the contract that goes through.
So
That's to this.
Could we
Madam
call
Chair
the
Gums,
question or send this back to committee?
Madam Chair, really quick, the other electeds have agreed verbally to the 120 per year. So if we can amend that to say per year, state's attorney, would that be? It
We
says
get-
it in
you-
there?
Yes, but this amendment doesn't say that, and you can't amend an amendment. You'd have to either withdraw this and substitute another amendment or amend the amended motion if it were to pass.
And we also have to do a math correction
Get that.
because unless we're paying this is $120,000 a year going to be paid this year? And literally this budget year, because we're halfway through this budget year. So we giving this firm $120,000 if the contract goes from June to November, that's our budget year. Or are we giving them half a year?
Get them 10 a month, right?
10 a month.
Subscribe
In a
to
month,
10,000 a
it's
month.
very specific.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't be paying for
Then it should be
January, February,
It should be
March, or
it should be
April.
60,000 budgeted. 120, 10 a month, 10 a month.
10 a month.
10 a
2
month,
years.
60,000
For 2 years.
So,
year.
Madam, you really got a whole year. If this 10 a month is right, you got $120,000 allocated here. That's a year from now. So you got half of next year already
Right.
accounted for.
Right.
Correct.
If there's budget transfers,
Right. Correct.
Will be.
but it should be clear, I think $60,000 this year.
We're paying
year-
by the month, so that's clear.
All right, so I do have a thought that this should not have this conversation at this level with exec. I think it's confusing. I think and I just think it needs better clarity. Perhaps unless there is a urgent need to get this out the door and the legislature is going to be shutting down on May 19th. Is there should we pull it back
No.
and let them
No,
revise it?
no. Need to vote on this first.
No.
Amendment right now.
All right, is any other questions on this? Then clerk, please call the roll on accepting the amended contract or the amended proposal, amended resolution.
Alan,
Alan,
This
aye.
is the amendment to the resolution.
Amendment to the resolution.
Bates,
Voted,
Yes.
Berman,
Berman, no.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Board, yes.
Gums,
Comes yes.
Caius,
Guys, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linda, yes.
Molina,
Molina, no.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, no.
Passes with 1, 2,
Madam Chair, if I may.
12 yeses.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I don't want you to take my word for it that the other electeds are on board. I believe Ms. Mosser is on as well. I don't know if she's able to speak, but
No, obviously they're on.
I mean, I was, okay.
They're committing their budget.
All right.
choices.
So can we speak on this amended resolution now?
The amendment, the Shepro, the resolution on the floor has been amended. And as far as I understand, debate on that resolution has not been terminated.
Very good.
Correct.
So before I finish talking about this, I want to bring up a few things that are a little bothersome. When this process started, obviously I was learning as I went. There's a few comments that were made that I personally want to clarify. So when we got our 2 proposals from the 2 individual companies, we utilized the RFQ to judge them based on their written proposal only. The RFQ was very clear. I do not have it in front of me, but if somebody has the RFQ in front of them, I would like that to be read if you happen to have that. If somebody could look for that, that would be great if we could read it. Also, this is a mess. It has been a mess. I've put more hours and lost sleep over this topic. I know Mr. Linder has lost sleep and put effort into this. The process was followed correctly. We had a scoring procedure. It was followed correctly. There was some discussion about misinformation about one company over the next. I will push back on that to say at no time did the legislative committee, our chairs, or anybody on the committee say anything bad about either company. Not one thing. What we did was we shared the information as requested by the legislative committee to everyone. And they had the opportunity to read for themselves what was and was not in their proposals. There's some question as to whether or not one is going to be charging for extra expenses. And in writing, a proposal that was written by one company indicates that the attendance of the consultant at meetings, the King County Board will not be included in their fee.
No, I don't.
So that is in writing. That we would have added cost for one. And in the other one, there is nothing, no added cost whatsoever. Both indicate that if there was some extraordinary major circumstance, that it would be approved by the chair, which we all agreed, was a good idea, because we don't want to send them to Hawaii on a conference on King County's dime, just to be clear. I'm glad to do that for you. Also,
Send us.
when we talk about comparing one to the other, I know this is not, but I have to clear this up. It's very important. So when we talked amongst the committee, the chairs of the committee and the evaluation team, several things came up. When you suggest that, when it has been suggested that we were disparaging because we indicated that one company did not have a large enough footprint in Washington, that individual did not qualify under the RFQ because they are not a registered lobbyist in Washington. That's not disparaging. That's just a fact, which is something that we looked at, we weighed, and came to our scores based on the information that was provided, both in writing and in our interviews. That process was fair. I never spoke to either one of these individuals. I do not have a personal relationship with either one of them. I'm not leaning on an individual's personal opinion for my suggestions, to be clear. I know that's come up a little bit, so and what I'm referring to there, and I'm going to say this out loud, is my personal relationship with our legislators is essential for what I do. I have a personal relationship with many of them. I asked all of them their opinions on both companies, everyone that I had contact with. Should be noted that their opinions didn't change from the first time we hired a lobbyist to the second time we hired a lobbyist. The first time we hired a lobbyist, those individuals' opinions were the same, and I voted in favor of Dan Shulman because I'm an independent thinker. And to suggest that my personal relationships with legislators has led my decision or scoring highly angers me, frankly. So I just wanted to clear that point up. Also, I feel like my relationship with the other company has been fractured at some level. I fear that this individual thinks that we have, as a legislative committee, disparaged them. We have not. We have given written information. We have shared everything with all of our committee members up through and including this committee today. There's nothing that has been hidden from you. I would like to draw attention to one issue, however. Madam Chair, you indicated that you have in writing that there is nothing that will be parted out in the invoices. So in the original proposal, it does indicate that there will be a charge hourly to report to meetings. And you have said that that is misinformation and that you have that in writing. I do not have that in writing. Mr. Linder, I don't believe you have that in writing.
Haven't seen it.
The committee does not have that in writing. I would be curious to know where that came from and how we got to that point.
gave that to, Mr. Young has a copy of it. Mr. Berman has a copy of it. I believe, who else? I did share it amongst board members.
So Mr. Young,
Don't you
Berman.
have a copy of that letter that I sent to you? Mr. Berman, I sent a copy of finance.
okay, neither of which are on legislative. And I would be curious to
With
find out
finance, with clarity of finance.
when that clarity occurred, what date?
I can send that information. I do not have my phone. I had it in my purse.
Okay, and would that be before or after the evaluation team came to a scoring resolution?
That came after.
Thank you. I have no further.
Madam Chair.
I do, there was one thing that I'd like to share, and this is truly, this is a very harsh conversation, and I think we all agree.
Should not
with this.
be.
I concur, I concur. I see no issue with any of the legislators. I have not spoken to any legislator about this issue at all. Nor should I. This is not their decision. This is our decision. So if you have spoken with any of the legislators about this, so be it. I have not gone down to Springfield. I know you were there. I have not mentioned this to anybody, except my conversations with Mr. Showman, who has reached out to me, wanting to know what was going on, because both parties are probably listening to our communication with each other at these meetings. The only thing that I did ask Mr. Showman is for clarity, specifically about this continued issue about the hourly costs. And I did ask for clarity for that. So I think, is there any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes. Mr. Libby, yes.
Ms. Gums, you did ask for the RFQ, and I found it here on my computer. As part of the RFQ, we listed a whole bunch of things. And we had a number of things that we are asking of our proposed lobbyists. Actually 10 items here, and I won't read them all. And it does say that at least some of these things. And one of them is the current state and federal lobbyist registration. The RFQ does not demand that. It suggests that as one of the things we need. And the McGuire Woods firm is registered both in Springfield and in Washington. I am troubled very much by how the process has been handled equitably by the committee, and Madam Chair, you've been doing a lot of dealing with the candidate who you prefer. I'm uncomfortable, but I think at this point we need to move this forward and vote on it. I think we've talked enough.
Call the question.
You'd like to call the
I'd like
question?
to call the question.
Heck, I asked that 20 minutes ago, but you must hold more weight. So
More power than you.
he does.
Everybody ready to vote?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Objection.
All right, let's go.
Alan,
Alan, aye.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Berman, no.
Davist,
I mean, now we're doing the,
Now we're voting.
Actual vote.
The big kahuna.
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Caius,
Guys, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis, Linder,
Linda, yes.
Molina,
Molina, no.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman, no. Surges,
Sturgis, no.
Pepe.
Deputy, no.
Passes.
Passes with 10 yeses and 5 noes.
5 noes. All right.
We done with that?
For now.
Not quite sure.
We dragged that dead horse through again.
Pick your battles. Yes.
Searches.
Just for this morning, we're done with it.
We ready?
Do it. We got questions for you.
Yeah.
That's the end of my.
Services resolution adopting the personnel relationships policy to the personal policy handbook. I will move that, looking for a second.
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez seconds.
Madam Chair, I have some suggestions.
What a surprise. What a surprise. Oh, my God.
Give me just a second, please.
I'd like to refer it to county board.
Sir.
Suggested that, do the younger members here need to go earmuffs first?
Me, man.
No other questions?
No other questions besides the suggestion by Mr. Tebby. Please call the roll.
Alan,
Alan,
I'm sorry, I did not hear you. What was that?
Alan, I.
Bates,
Yes, aye.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
That was yes.
Ford,
Gums, yes.
Caius,
Guys, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linda, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman and educated, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
With approval from Ms. Strathman, I vote yes.
Thank God.
Says, all right,
How
passes.
fast that went.
Was that because you stepped on your head a little while ago?
Selena?
Good morning, everyone. The Judicial Public Safety Committee has 4 resolutions. The first resolution is actually a duplicate, so I'd just like to pull that. That was approved at last month's meeting. So I have 3 resolutions. I'd like to motion to move to the consent agenda.
Sanchez seconds.
Okay, first resolution is authorizing an intergovernmental agreement for participation in the mutual aid box alarm system. The second resolution is recognizing April as National Volunteer Appreciation Month. And the third resolution is authorizing an agreement with CASA, King County, for licensed space in the King County Courthouse.
We got a second.
I already got a second. Are there any questions on these? And just a comment, I would like to thank Chief Judge very much for his negotiations and persistence in making sure that CASA remains in the home that they have worked hard to obtain and have taken very good care of and invested their time and their treasure in making the courthouse adaptable to their needs and doing it in an architecturally sensible way so it doesn't destroy the historic architecture of this well-revered building. So thank you, sir. And thank you for giving up some of your own personal space, allowing them and allowing the state's attorney to be able to work in that area. Well done, well done. That took lots of good negotiations.
And for patiently enduring us this morning while you waited to get here. to this point.
Oh, Mr.
Oh, buddy.
We have a visitor.
Welcome.
Is
So if there's no other questions, clerk, please call the roll.
Alan,
Alan, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
That was yes.
Ford, Gums,
Gums, yes.
Caius,
Guys, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linda, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tubby.
Happy yes.
Passes.
Okay, thank you. Davis.
Good morning. Transportation has 14 items, which I will move and seek a second and then a ceremonial third from Mr. Fraz since he's here.
Linda, second.
When did you pull?
since we've taken so long, I don't know how much you guys really want to hear in the detail of each of these, but
We're waiting, man.
here-
Wrapped.
okay.
Attention, you
All
got our
right.
attention.
All right, first one, adopt a highway. We have
Can I get a sound wall?
To remove any of the items.
not unless you want to start some trouble.
I'm just,
Okay. All right, adopt the highway. We have one new applicant and one renewal. Item 2 is thank you, Jake, for your work. Ryden Kane, Veteran Assistance Commission. We have some local fiscal recovery funds. Jake's working on the IGA and it's in good hands. 3 through 9 are all township road districts. And Aurora, Blackberry, Burlington, Campton, Dundee, Geneva, and St. Charles townships all have their road budgets. Number 10 is a contract with Martam for the Kesslinger Road drain tile replacement, $169,247. Number 11, contract to do the traffic control systems, or with Traffic Control Systems Limited of Elk Grove for painting and marking pavement, $855,000. It's better to be in that business than drain tile, apparently. Number 12, SKC Construction for the crack sealing project, $845,724. Number 13, Phase 2 Engineering with Hampton, Lenzini, and Renwick of Elgin for the Randall Road at Big Timber Road intersection improvements, $769,420. And then number 14 is approving acquisition of some right-of-way by the Union Pacific Railroad tracks in Geneva for a more modest $57,500. That's what we have for you.
Are there any questions on any of these? Hearing none. Oh, yes, sir.
Sir, just Mark, if offline, you can give me a call. I did see an email regarding the Randall Road intersection and something about the next phase and some open houses coming up and stuff. Just offline, if we can just talk about that.
Randall and 64 by any chance?
I thought it was Randall and.
Randall and 90.
That's, Chris, did you read that as well?
16th, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you. It's been out. They published it in the paper and you should have got an email, but it's in transportation as well.
Okay,
So if it's just,
yes.
thank you.
Jackie
For
Forbes also
clarification.
has that information.
Okay. Nothing else? Call the vote, please.
Allen,
Alan, I.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford, Gums,
Gums, yes.
Caius,
Guys, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Surges,
Or just yes.
Tepe.
Jeppy, yes.
Pass.
Raz?
All right, we got through that. There is no need for any executive session that I'm aware of. Are there any committee reports?
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Exactly a committee report, but those of you who were at the Special Development Committee last week that passed a proposed zoning text amendment is not on this agenda. And if anybody wonders why, it's because typically the zoning amendments go straight to the full board. That is the amendment to retain county jurisdiction over solar and windmills, which the legislature requires action by the full board by the end of this month. So it will, I believe, appear on the full board agenda next Tuesday.
Okay, thank you for that.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Caius, yeah, just a quick reminder that we're still working on the master plan. We're having regular 2-week meetings with both judicial and this area as well, the government center. And so we haven't, thanks for all the input at the visioning session, and we're taking that to heart and working on that to proceed.
Okay, Ms. Combs.
Bates,
Bates, I'm sorry.
the climate, the Energy and Environmental Committee had another listening session up in Elgin on Saturday. We had about 35 or 40 people attend, so that was fantastic. And we're still trying to get more people to take our survey, which is online. Just Google like Kane County Climate Action Plan and it'll pop up for you. We have about 700 people have taken the survey. Our goal is 1,000. If you haven't taken it, please take it. Thanks.
Anybody else? I do have a reminder for the board, everybody's listening, and we will be sending out that information to you all as a reminder that as of May 11th, which is a week from today, the Open Meetings Act will be kicked in. And that remember that if you're going to want to attend the meeting and you're not here in person, that you either have to be working and let us know ahead of time. You have to be ill and be not being able to attend because of illness, or if you are traveling for county business. But all of which have to be called in ahead of time and then voted upon by that committee and or board to allow you in. We'll be sending you the contact information for that, either call or email. And it'll be a new procedure. So we're looking forward to having everybody here in attendance. And for those of you who have been on the board, and many of us have been in the time of COVID, entered into the time of COVID. For those of you who were here before COVID, we're going back to the way it was previously.
And family emergencies?
No family emergency.
Don't have a family?
If it's not, yes, you can, if you have a family emergency, Ms. Bates, I do hope you're attending to your family emergency.
Too late, right? You got a family?
Just do it while you're sick.
Madam Chair, just for clarification, that is in order to be able to vote.
And
remotely?
to participate, you can listen. You can certainly
But I mean
listen.
to,
To actually make comment, you're required, those are the three, but you can certainly listen.
and what about a vote?
No vote.
Okay.
But
right,
if
thank
you accept, if you're accepted in to the group because of those restricted reasons.
No,
You
no
are,
vote
then
and
you would-
not for attendance purposes, for quorum purposes.
I'm sorry.
If the person is not called in with the proper reason, they can't vote and they would not be counted for attendance.
That's correct.
Or quorum.
Correct.
Thank you for the clarification.
All right. So all
Madam-
of that will be sent out to you.
All right, Madam Chair, for clarification, surgeons bring this point a lot. Call into who, where do these calls come into? How do this?
We have an email and a hotline set up for that.
Okay.
Oh, one more point. There must be a quorum in the room, whether it's a committee, whether it's the full board. A quorum will need to be in the room to proceed with the meeting. We can't have, you will count those people out there as part of the quorum as long as there's a quorum in the room. If there's not a quorum in the room, we can't proceed.
Unless there's a
Correct.
weather-related emergency. And then there has to be one individual in here that would be representative of the possibly a state's attorney or myself, and I live relatively close.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
Then do you make that call of the emergency, weather emergency?
yes. Well, I don't make it, but it's the emergency management will let me know that the roads are unsafe. Or if a tornado hits, et cetera.
The building fell down.
Question.
Okay, yes.
Well,
yes.
and along those lines, we will not be able to do unanimous consent. Is that correct? For minutes and or putting
I'll
records
look
on
at
file?
that. I think you still might be able to. I mean, the roll call requirement was imposed because of the state of emergency.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Caius.
Yeah.
We did ask that question at the training the other day, and the lady who was what do they call her? The Attorney General's representative
Yeah.
to open meetings and FOIA said, no, we can go ahead and do unanimous consent. That was that provision that we shouldn't have been doing it during the session, but now as of May 11th, it's fine. That's what she said anyway.
Yeah.
So you can still do unanimous consent
Yes.
Still
because
checking
people
that.
still be in attendance.
Okay, thank you.
So it'll be,
Eric?
yeah, I think we're done.
It's 11 o'clock.
I think we're about done. And this gentleman over
I'd
here,
like to move, we adjourn. And
Have
I'm
a second.
surprised. We made it swiftly this far.
Madam Chair, I believe we need to put reports on file first.
there any?
That by unanimous consent, correct?
Madam Chair, may I ask for unanimous consent to put reports on file?
Can we do that?
Okay. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Now let's adjourn.
Okay, no.
Full meeting.
Don't want to run down the clock.
All motion has been brought forward to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed?
Come look at
Have a
that.
great
We
day,
hit
all.
11.
Oops. Sorry.
Oh, you
Try
didn't do
something
too
bad.
bad
Move it,
today.
That's okay. I gotta move up.